My last two projects were both knit in plain stockinette stitch, and on top of that, they were both knit with really fuzzy yarns. And I gotta say, I just need a break from this kind of knitting, and that's why I'm trying to go in the opposite direction with both my yarn and pattern choices. And so my next project that I've been itching to start for a while now is the Siri Cardigan. Just a heads up, I've never knit a cardigan before, and I've never knit cables before. So I do realize it will be a challenging project for me, but I'm really excited about it, and I'm willing to put in as much effort as needed and learn new things along the way, I guess. And since I've already looked through the pattern, I know there are a lot of new things for me to learn. Anyway, I've already knit a few swatches for the sake of learning how to knit cables, and I've also knit a swatch in moss stitch, and I'd say I'm at the gauge. The only problem I think is that I stretched my swatch a little bit while blocking it, so it ended up a little bit bigger than it was supposed to be. But I just have to make sure I don't make the same mistake when I block my cardigan. As for the yarn, I'm going to use Mota by WoolDreamers. It is 100% wool, and there are 230 meters in 100 grams. I'm going to use it in colorway 002G, and it's not the one you're looking at right now because the swatches I made are in colorway 004G, which is also a nice color, but I wanted my cardigan to be navy blue. I placed an order for the yarn in this color the day before Christmas, and today, the day before New Year's, it arrived. So it will be my first project of the year. However, I'm also planning on buying Mohair yarn of a similar color, but not the same, because I would like to add some variation of color. And I also think Mohair can help make my cardigan a little bit warmer and add a little bit of halo and overall embody how I envision this cardigan. It's been a few days, or even more than a few, and as you can see, the Christmas decorations had to come down finally, and my Mohair yarn has arrived. So I finally ended up going with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in navy blue. I know that I previously mentioned that I wanted to add a bit of color variation, so I was choosing between a few color options, but I didn't like any of them. And finally I settled on navy blue, hoping it would be just a little bit different from the navy blue I already had, since they're different brands. But as you can see, they are pretty similar, so color variation, not this time, apparently. While I was waiting for the yarn to be delivered, I read through the pattern thoroughly, so I feel like I know what to expect at each stage of the project, yet the charts took me a while to wrap my head around. But I'm hoping they'll make more sense once I start working on the cardigan, which I've been putting off because I feel a bit intimidated. But I think today it's time for me to cast on, especially if I want to finish this project before the winter season is over. And today it's a perfect opportunity for me to do something useful and productive this Sunday evening before I go to bed. So let's do it. One other thing I wanted to mention is the size I've chosen. I'm kinda in between two sizes, and I feel like I could go either way depending on how much positive ease I want for my cardigan. I want it to be slightly oversized, so I think I'll opt for the size S rather than XS. I'm knitting this project on 5mm needles instead of the 5.5 recommended. I finished German short rows plus a few more rows, and it's going pretty well so far. As you can see, the pattern has started to form and it's really exciting. There was one moment at the beginning when I started working with charts that really confused me. When I did my cable swatches, I remember that for the horseshoe cable, I was holding the cable needle to the back first and then to the front, but in the pattern it was the other way around. And I couldn't understand why, so I made another swatch to double check, and I realized that the way you hold your needles changes whether the horseshoe is facing up or down. Isn't it mind-blowing? It definitely is for someone who's never knit cables. For now, I'm enjoying it a lot. The charts are so much easier to understand than I expected. I haven't made any mistakes, knock on wood. I love watching the cables form, and I cannot wait for the rows where I get to do the cable twists. Total joy, total delight. Also, this is the first time I'm timing how long this project takes, at least approximately being the keyword here. But I'm trying to get myself into the habit of tracking my time, but for now I sometimes forget to start the stopwatch or I forget to stop it so I can go on a dog walk with it still running, and then I try to compensate for that time afterward. So it's not super accurate, but it's still better than nothing. That said, German short rows part took me about 5 hours, and first when I saw it on my phone it was like 5 hours, but it kind of checks out because I had a lot of questions at the beginning and I was trying to go slowly so I don't mess up the pattern. Once I finished the chart, because after German short rows you switch to working with charts, I think I was at around 9th hour on the project. After that, the instructions basically tell you to keep increasing for the yoke, and that's what I'm doing now. And at this point I think I am 13 hours into the project. It looks like this. Obviously, now that I know the pattern and I understand what I'm doing, I knit each new row faster, so it feels like I'm making more progress in less and less time. What was I telling you? Yeah, as I said, after the chart is finished, they basically tell you to keep increasing for the yoke while keeping up with the moss stitch and cables, plus the sleeves are not increased at the same rate as the yoke, and it's a lot for me to keep track of. That's why I scribbled a little scrappy cheat chart that looks like this, so I could cross out the row I've already done and not lose count or forget the cable twist and increases, and according to it I should be done pretty soon. About 3 weeks since I last checked in, and during the time I haven't had that much time to knit, but somehow I managed not only to separate the sleeves, but I've also almost finished the body. I think I've been knitting here and there rather than having long knitting sessions, and I'm currently about 27 hours into this cardigan. The first thing I wanted to mention is that I thought that the yoke rows would get really long and boring, and at some point it would just start to feel endless. At least that's what I heard from people who had knit cardigans. And I think they would have felt this way if I were just knitting and purling, but in this cardigan they turned out to be pretty engaging and fun, and it didn't feel like I spent that much time on them, even though I did. One issue that I ran into had to do with the moss stitch. So the thing was that when I was knitting the yoke, the stitch pattern on the same row didn't match between the front and the back. So I would knit the knits and purl the purls in the front and the sleeves, but then the same row I would knit the purls and purled the knits in the back. And at the time, I didn't question it at all. It didn't even cross my mind that it might cause a problem when I joined the body. But once I did join the body, that's when I realized it was a mistake. And I was able to fix this mistake by adding some kind of a short row. But I'm still curious about when exactly this mistake originated. I enjoyed knitting the body a lot because at this stage of the project I didn't need to struggle to understand the pattern anymore. I didn't need to be glued to the charts, and I could just relax and knit on the cables and the moss stitch, and it was just perfect. And actually, I tried my cardigan on earlier today. I was worried that the armholes might be too small, but now I can see they're actually fine. I think this sweater will relax and grow a little after blocking, but even now I really like how it's coming together. For the record, today is the 20th of February and it's Friday, and I'm planning on knitting all the weekend, so we'll see how it goes. And I'm aiming to wrap up this project by the end of February. And I'm probably delusional. But at least if I could finish the body and the sleeves, I would be happy. And here I am, it's the 1st of March today, and as you can see, I'm still finished the first sleeve here, but at least the body is done. Today is Sunday, and I'm hoping to finish the sleeve today and probably start the second one. I've broken into the last ball of Mohair I have, and I'm really hoping this ball will be enough to finish the cardigan. And now the hours spent are sitting at 39 hours. Honestly, I didn't expect this number when I checked my phone. I don't know how it happened, but I remember that the bind off really tripped me up because the instructions said to do double knitting and I didn't know how to do it. And I couldn't understand it from the instructions, so I had to do some research. I also learned that tubular bind off, the one where you add a few rows of double knitting first, actually then that stretches binding off without those extra rows. Anyway, I had to do 2 rows of double knitting and I didn't get it right on the first try. But finally, after a few do-overs, I did it, but I'm still not sure if I did it the way it was supposed to be done. And then I was so excited to start the sleeves, but I couldn't understand the instructions and I was really annoyed. But to be fair, I don't think there was anything wrong with the pattern. There was probably something wrong with me, maybe, and probably I was just tired that day. So what I did was I started around right after the cable where the moss stitch begins to avoid a jog in the pattern, and then I placed another marker at the underarm so I'd know exactly where to decrease, and I'm pretty sure that's what the pattern meant. And here I'm trying it on. One thing that I am not fully satisfied with is that I used 4.5mm needles for the ribbing, and I think the ribbing on 4mm needles would look way better, but I only have 4.5 and 3.5mm needles, and I thought 3.5 might be too small and cinch it too much, which I didn't want. So yeah, hopefully it doesn't bug me that much in the future. Ta-da! I finished the sleeves, and the second sleeve went by way faster than the first one. So now only the button placket separates me from declaring this cardigan complete. I've checked the instructions for the button placket and it shouldn't be that difficult. Bad news though, I have no mohair yarn left. So now I have to wait for another ball of mohair to be delivered, which upsets me a little bit because I just want to get this cardigan out of the way already. I mean, I like knitting it, but it's just taking so long. Here I am knitting the left button band and then the right one. One thing I think I need to improve for my next project is binding off. I'm pretty sure I didn't do it correctly this time. The way I did the double knitting isn't exactly what the pattern instructed, and I think I could get a neater result next time. But for now, I decided to bind off everything the same way. The same way with mistakes, but well, it's fine. Since I modified the lengths of the cardigan, I had to recalculate the button placement so the holes would be evenly spaced. I had never made a buttonhole before, and I learned that the same stitch can be knit and purled at the same time, which is interesting. At this point, when I try the cardigan on, I am a little worried it's too short and that it might slide forward on my shoulders, making the back look shorter than the front. But I guess I should finish it first to see the final result. I finally finished the bottom placket, and at this point I am 50 hours into this project. That's honestly unbelievable. It's so many hours and it feels like it could be done way faster than I did it. Anyway, I am really excited to block my cardigan. In fact, I am about to do it right now, and here's what it looks like before blocking. I haven't attached any buttons yet because I feel like I'll be able to place them more accurately once it's blocked. All right, I'm going to block it now, and I'll tell you everything I have to tell you once it's dry and completely finished. When my cardigan was almost dry, I attached the buttons. I had to buy some needles of different sizes for my other projects, and I spotted these buttons on the same website. The color looked like a good match, so I decided not to look any further, and here they are. I didn't look up the proper way to attach buttons to a knitted garment, but from my experience with other types of clothing, I know it's important to leave a little shank so the button sits on top of the fabric instead of being pressed down, which creates awkward wobbly shapes. I first sewn the buttons on with regular thread and then added some stitches on top with Mota yarn to make them look prettier. My cardigan is blocked. It actually dried really quickly. I waited for a sunny day and it literally dried in less than 24 hours. That's the fastest I've ever seen a sweater dry. So, conclusions and final thoughts on the project. First of all, I am completely satisfied with the result, because what not to be satisfied with? I'm really happy with the button band. Nothing wobbly is going on here. I was a bit worried. And this line looks pretty straight. That's great. And the buttons are the same color as the cardigan, so they blend in nicely. I'm happy with the sleeve length and overall length of the cardigan. The front and the back are the same length. And I'm also really enjoying the cables as well. I think I did a pretty good job for the first time knitting them. And they look really cute. That's nice. One thing that I'm not really happy with, or maybe I would change a little bit, is the neckline. I'd prefer to sit a bit closer to the neck, but again, I should say that it's pretty comfortable the way it is, and I think that's the way it's supposed to be. Okay, what else? I definitely overestimated the time I'd have for knitting every day and hoping I could finish this project before the season is over. And it's almost over now, especially considering that this cardigan has more of an autumn vibe rather than a spring one. But anyway, due to some positive changes in my personal life, I couldn't finish it sooner. And I also should be honest and confess that I cast on a few new projects while working on this one, which didn't help to speed things up either. Now, important info and stats about the project. Let's backtrack a little to the construction and the yarn quantities. So the Siri Cardigan, as you may have noticed, is a raglan construction shaped with shirt rows, and it has a simple ribbed button band. I think it's a great pattern to dip your toe into cable knitting, as there is only one cable running down each sleeve, and then there are 4 of them on the front, which is not overwhelming to knit at all. So I initially bought 5 skeins of WoolDreamers Mota yarn and 4 skeins of Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair, and then I had to pick up 1 more ball of mohair. But then in total I used just a little bit more than 4 skeins of Mota and a little bit more than 4 skeins of mohair, and I think it only happened because of length modification, because I made the cardigan a little bit longer. Otherwise, I'm sure I'd have had enough yarn, and that's actually what I have left, so I think it will be perfectly enough to make like a small scarf or something. Maybe I could even make one in the same texture to go with the cardigan or something like that. The total cost of the yarn for this project was 95 euros, including 5.50 for delivery. And then the pattern itself was, I think, 7 euros. And I also bought buttons, which cost 3 euros. So the total cost of the project comes out to 105 euros. And the total time spent was 50 hours. So I was basically paying 2 euros per hour for my leisure time. And plus I got a whole damn cardigan out of it. So that's a pretty good deal for me. That said, it's useful when explaining things to people who say something like, oh, you knit so well, why don't you sell these cardigans? Or who think that you're just crazy to spend like 100 euros on a cardigan. Doesn't work this way. Most importantly, it was just interesting to me to know those things and to know how much time I could possibly spend on a cardigan like this. That's nice to know. 2 hours. That's nice to know. I really enjoyed working with Mota yarn, and I hope it holds up well against peeling, especially with the help of Mohair. And I also hope the button band doesn't stretch out with time, because I know it can happen when the larger needle size is used instead of a smaller one. What else? Yeah, I remember moments when my energy dwindled a bit and I was a little bit discouraged by how slowly I was making progress on this cardigan. But each time I came back to it, the yarn was what made me want to keep going and like continue working on this cardigan. It's just such a delight to work with. It's really soft and it's really nice. And I've worn this cardigan a few times and it's not itchy for me, which is great news. And I'm also sure that this yarn will get softer after a few washes. We'll see. So final conclusions. The pattern is great. The yarn is great. The cardigan fits me well. It's so comfortable and effortless to wear. I'm so happy to add a cable cardigan into my wardrobe. I didn't have one, at least for a while. I don't remember when I had like a cable cardigan in my wardrobe for the last time. Anyway, I didn't have one. Also, really important thing is that I enjoyed working on this cardigan. I had a really great time. It was not boring to work on this project. It was not overwhelming, but it was interesting, engaging, satisfying, just enjoyable. That's it. And it was like a really amazing way of spending 50 hours of my life. This project was on my needles for relatively a long time. It was on my needles from January 18th to March 26th. And now I can finally enjoy the finished piece. Or more like I'll be enjoying it in the upcoming autumn. So in about like 6 months or so. Yes, that's it. Another milestone achieved. But stay tuned. Stranded Colorwork is coming up next.